Why, hello there. My name is Stephanie, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. My last alcoholic beverage was March 9th of 2021, and I've been able to stay off of alcohol because I work the program called Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an old program, but it works. This Big Book Study podcast is here to help you digest, understand, read, and consume the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Whether or not you believe in God doesn't matter. I'm myself an atheist. And I find that if I switch the word good for God and God for good, then the text actually makes a lot more sense to me. So as I proceed and we pick up where we left off on our Big Book study, I will try to change pronouns in this 90-year-old text to reflect a more non-binary and all-inclusive text. And then I will also try to alter the text where it says God to replace with the word good. If this messes with you, I am sorry. But see, I was abused under the word of the religious God, the Christian God. And that stood in the way of my accepting the program for a long time. I don't want that to happen to you because the program of Alcoholics Anonymous works, but it's very easy to be turned off by it if you were abused by a religious person in your life. If religion was used against you in your lifetime, then Alcoholics Anonymous can cause very strong, visceral, negative reactions in you when you hear the word God. But I've worked this program and I can tell you that you don't have to believe in any version of God except the one that you want to, or none at all. This book works if you're an atheist, an agnostic, a Christian, a Muslim, it doesn't matter. So I've been getting over an illness and the holidays have been a lot. So it's been a few days since you've seen me, but it's important for me to get back into my spiritual practice. It's really easy to forget about our health, wellness, exercise, mental health, and spiritual health when we're doing things like visiting people, company, parties, work events, shopping till we drop. It's easy to get out of touch with that spiritual center. We need to cultivate that and curate that, your connection with inner self, how your body feels, how your mind feels, and what you think and believe about this world. So let's get into the text. Page 49 is where we left off in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is my favorite chapter of the book. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end of it all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? I'm already going to pause right there. Because this text was written 90 years ago, I will give it grace. In this chapter, they will throw some shade at us atheists and agnostics, basically saying here in this paragraph that we're so vain and self-centered that we believed because there's no God, that means we have the last word on the creation of the universe. But let me pause there and inform the writers of this book that's ridiculous. Atheists and agnostics are not people who believe that they know the beginning and end of creation and the universe. Christian people will tend to have an animosity and a resentment for us atheists and agnostics. And it's been 90 years since this book was written, and we have a lot more science to support the fact that the Bible is bullshit. Right here, you can hear the writers throwing shade at us atheists and agnostics as if we know everything. That is not what atheists believe. We don't believe we know everything. We don't believe that we have the last word on the creation of the world. No, we believe that there is not a theology that we would like to follow. That's it. Atheist means a theology, without theology. That's it. And agnostic means I don't know. I have no theology and I don't know. That's what agnostic means. So in this chapter, it's a bit sticky because they don't really understand the definition of atheist and agnostic here. And again, this book is really old. So we've come to understand that atheists and agnostics are not self-centered narcissists who believe that they know the answers to the universe. No, in fact, we are open-minded scientists who understand that proof is the best basis for belief. So, in summation of that tiny little paragraph on page 49, I take umbrage with these writers and I want to tell them, back off. Christians, just because we don't believe what you believe does not mean we are narcissistic and believe that we know everything. That's so silly. In fact, agnostics fully admit that they know not much. That's part of what agnostic means. It means I don't know. Moving on with the text. We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. Again, pause there. They're going back into the shade, throwing shade at the people who don't practice a Christian religion. And I'm going to tell you that that's not necessary for recovery. I don't believe you have to lay aside your prejudice towards organized religion to accept this program. This program will show you how to work through those resentments and those prejudice and biases. So you can hold on to your resentment for organized religion as you digest this text. Because as you work the program, your resentments and your prejudice, they will fall away naturally as we move into how it works, which is the next chapter. So if we're in the chapter of We Agnostics, we haven't even gotten into the steps yet. It's okay for you to hold on to your resentments. Your shadow self deserves acknowledgement. So once we acknowledge and hold those resentments and understand where they come from, therein lies the power as we start to work the steps where we can list them and let them go. Moving on to this very biased text. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than themselves. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that there are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. There are questions for each individual to settle for themselves. On one proposition, however, these people are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than themselves. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly possible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record. Here are thousands of people, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Here are thousands of people, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of a higher power is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. Pause there. I changed the word presence of God to higher power there because this text really, really, really wants you to believe in a Christian God, but we're not going to let it convince us of that because that's bullshit. We all know the Bible was debunked. The science doesn't add up. And they're saying here that the belief in a presence of God or a higher power is what shifted and gave people faith. Faith in purpose of being, faith in their own strength and ability, faith that future matters. And again, you don't have to believe in God. You can believe in your higher power. Your higher power might be like mine. My higher power is called good. It's just good. Why? Because the word good has never once been divisive, has it? We can all agree that good is good, right? So let's proceed. This world of ours has made more material progress in the last century than in all the millenniums which went before. Almost everyone knows the reason students of ancient history tell us that the intellect of people in those days was equal to the best of today. Yet in ancient times, material progress was painfully slow. The spirit of modern scientific inquiry, research, and invention was almost unknown. In the realm of the material, people's minds were fettered by superstition, tradition, and all sorts of fixed ideas. Some of the contemporaries of Columbus thought a round earth preposterous. Others came near putting Galileo to death for his astronomical heresies. We asked ourselves this: are not some of us just as biased and unreasonable about the realm of the spirit as were the ancients about the realm of the material? Even in the present century, American newspapers were afraid to print an account of the Wright brothers' first successful flight at Kitty Hawk. Had not all efforts at flight failed before? Did not Professor Langley's flying machine go to the bottom of the Potomac River? Was it not true that the best mathematical minds had proved man could never fly? Had not people said God has reserved this privilege to the birds? Only 33 years later, the conquest of the air was almost an old story, and airplane travel was in full swing. Let's pause there. They're trying to compare blind faith of Mother Nature with the faith we have in mathematics and air flight. Again, this pinpoints how old this text is, because if this were written today, they would sound like total idiots. Of course, we can have more faith in mathematics, in aerospace engineering, and flight because it works every time. The science confirms it. So in trying to read a text that is so old, that wants us to believe in faith, blind faith in a God, we can say no thanks. I can tell you that you don't really need to believe in that God to have a higher power. Your higher power can be love. Moving on. But in most fields, our generation has witnessed complete liberation of our thinking. Show any longshoreman a Sunday supplement describing a proposal to explore the moon by means of a rocket, and he will say, I bet they do it. Maybe not so long either. Is not our age characterized by the ease with which we discard old ideas for new, by the complete readiness with which we throw away the theory or gadget which does not work for something new which does? Pause there. Sure, they're saying that why not try religion, higher power on for size? Because without it, your life wasn't working. And I say to them, okay, fine. Fine, I will try your higher power thing on for size. I don't need the Christian God with the sandals and the long hair and the inexplicable blue eyes. Is love. And I can still be an atheist and agnostic and have a higher power. This book does not realize that spirituality is not theology. But as we move into the 21st century, we know this to be true. We had to ask ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having trouble with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these bedevilments more important than whether we should see newsreels of lunar flight? Of course it was. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. Yeah. The Wright brothers' almost childish faith that they could build a machine which would fly was the mainspring of their accomplishment. Without that, nothing could have happened. We agnostics and atheists were sticking to that idea of self-sufficiency would solve our problems. When others showed us that God's sufficiency worked with them, we began to feel like those who had insisted their rights would never fly. Logic is great stuff. We like it. We still like it. It is not by chance we were given the power to reason, to examine the evidence of our senses, and to draw a conclusion. That is one of man's magnificent attributes. We agnostically inclined would not feel satisfied with a proposal which does not lend itself to reasonable approach and interpretation. Hence, we were at pains to tell why we think our present faith is reasonable, why we think it more sane and logical to believe than not to believe, why we say our former thinking was soft and mushy when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know. Pause there. See, agnostics, we don't know. We don't know. It says right there that they do know that being agnostic means we don't know. But if you listen close, the subtext here is trying to convince us that the atheists and agnostics switched sides. But again, you don't have to believe in a God to be spiritually grown and ascended. When we became alcoholics, crushed by self-imposed crisis, we could not postpone or evade. We had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else God is nothing. God either is or God isn't. What was our choice to be? Pause there again. I have to take a breath and calm myself down because I have resentment towards this chapter. We agnostics is trying to convince me and us that believing in a higher power means you are not agnostic or atheist. And that's just not what that means. You can have a spiritual growth and a spiritual presence in this world and have no connection to any theology and have made no certain statement about your beliefs on the beginning or end of the universe. They're trying to convince us here that God either is to be or is not to be. And again, this is not open-minded. This is a black and white thinking that's based in mental illness. We know now, in the year 2025, this book was written 90 years ago, we know now that black and white thinking is a trauma response, a catastrophizing. There is no black and white. There is only gray area. So the writers of this book want us to believe that we can either believe in a higher power or not. It's either one or the other. But again, with agnosticism, we sit in the middle with we don't know and we're open to interpretation, which is what this chapter misses. It really misses the truth of what agnosticism is And I can hear it trying to convince us into a Christian God, but don't take the bait. You don't need that. Your higher power can be love. Arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. We couldn't duck the issue. Some of us had already walked far over the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith. The outlines and the promise of the new land had brought luster to the tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Friendly hands had stretched out in welcome. We were grateful that reason had brought us far. But somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support. That was natural, but let us think a little more closely. Without knowing it, had we not been brought to where we stood by a certain kind of faith? For did we not believe in our own reasoning? Did we not have confidence in our own ability to think? What was that but a sort of faith? Yes, we had been faithful, abjectly faithful, to the God of reason. So in one way or another, we discovered that faith had been involved all the time. We will pause there. Of course it is. We'll pause on 54 for now. Of course faith has been there the whole time. Again, this book, this chapter is trying to convince you, and they're trying to sway you, but you don't have to go that way, that faith in God is a new thing. That because you're agnostic or atheist, you don't contain faith, which is absolute bullshit. Humans naturally contain a belief and a faith in things that have enough proof. And that's what I encourage you to do. Just like with the alcohol. When you saw it wasn't working for you and you were getting sicker and sicker and broker, waking up more and more regretful, you took that proof and you're trying to take action to change that. You're here watching this video, listening to this podcast. If you're still here, please drop something in the comment, a little heart emoji, a cheers glass, a beer stein just for irony, whatever it is. You are killing time and saving lives, your life, because you saw the proof of how alcohol treated you in reality, not what the commercials tell you, not what TV, movies, and rap music tells you, but what your body has been telling you. You had blind faith in alcohol that it would give to you what you were promised by pop culture, and guess what? It didn't. It makes us sick. So take that blind faith that they're encouraging you to have and put it aside and look at the proof. Look at the proof of where the alcohol has gotten you. And then proceed with that knowledge and that science and that data towards new behaviors that give us different data. So that's why choosing a big book study online with me instead of picking up a drink of alcohol is your next step in the right direction. Contrary action. Use your smart feet towards the activity that will prove to support love and take care of you. You know that after a night of not drinking, you feel much better in the morning. That's proof that you don't need to believe in anything blindly. You can believe in your body and what your friends and family and loved ones are telling you. So thank you for being here with me tonight. I'm going to cut it short there. I appreciate everyone who tunes in. Please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. Please let me know you stayed to the end. I'm new at this, and I really, really, really want to spread the word of alcohol abstinence awareness, because this stuff is poison and we don't need it anymore. So until next time, please be kind to yourself and love yourself and choose a drink that supports your heart, your soul, your mind. Coconut water, maybe. Until next time, no drinking. Keep smiling. Namaste.
Doesn't it feel good when you're just about to do something that you know is wrong and you decide to do something else, something that won't hurt you or anybody else? Doesn't that feel great?